It's the Utah Thriller, my take on the Utah killer bug, a classic pattern that I spiced up with a little bit of glimmer and shine. Let's tie one up. So grab a cup of chill as we sit back and go on the Vise with the FlyOlderGuy. And on the Vise, we're going to start with a size 16 curved nymph hook. Going to pair that with an appropriately sized brass-colored bead head. And we're going to get that in the vise. Here I'm using some lead-free wire, breaking off about 1.5 inches. Give yourself enough to get 5-6 good wraps around there. It can be a little annoying to break them off. Usually a pinch and a little twist gets it to get at least close. You might have to, adjust it a little bit, but looks pretty good right there. On the bobbin, I'm going to load that up with some unithread. 72 denier. This is the fire orange. Something to catch the attention. That's going to be like a hot spot or a collar on the bug. Now I'm starting that thread off just behind the wire and then up into the wire, kind of lock it in there, go back over the wire, and then we'll trim off the tag end of the thread. And I build up a little bit of a thread body here also as a guideline to myself where I'm tying in materials, where I want to start the different materials. And then I'll work my way back up towards the bead head, end it right there behind the bead head. And that's where we're going to tie in our next material, which is the metallic Madeira, the little flash sparkle material I like to use. And again, probably 4 inches of that, double it over, get a nice loop there, and that loop is going to act like a little budding wing, a part of the budding wing. So we're going to tie that in right behind the bead head. Once it's secured, we're going to move down the hook all the way down to that bend. And as I said, I kind of mark that spot where I want to leave my materials there. And then work my way back up and leave the thread right around the hook point. And get ready to tie in our yarn. And the yarn is as close as I could find to an oyster color, as I rooted through my mom's old stockpile of yarns in the attic. And I cut off about 4 or 5 inches here. You can see it's, 2 strands twisted up. So what I'm doing is separating the strands by twisting it in the opposite direction. Once it starts to come apart, like in the middle a little bit, I pull on that, being very gentle. The strands can get a little frayed. This one piece got a little frayed right here. Still good, but it's tough because we have to give it a twist, and you don't want to handle it too much. So tying it in right where I left that thread, right at the hook point, nice and tight, and we're going to tie the material in all the way down, just like I did with the Madeira, to the spot right around where I wanted to, leave that thread marker for myself earlier. So there is a method to my madness, at least, So we're going to bring the thread back up, try and cover that tag end of the yarn, get it behind the bead head, and leave the bobbin in the cradle. Grab our material clip. This is the larger material clip, because if you use your fingers here, you're going to probably fray this yarn, this half a strand of yarn, you know what I mean? So I clip on the clip and use the clip to twist the yarn into like a little bit of a cord. I'm twisting it in a clockwise motion, and I'll check it in a second to see. Whoop, there you go. Looks like it's corded up enough, and we'll start to twist it around. And I'm starting the twist right at the base there and working my way up. Every time I come around in a turn, I'll give this another twist. I give the corded up yarn one little twist with my other hand as I bring it around, just to keep it taut, keep it twisted, because it wants to untwist. And you'll see when we get towards the end, it sort of spins when I let it go. So we're right up, all the way up, nice and corded. It has a nice looking segmentation to it, and you can see it spin out a little bit there. That's what happens. So that's why I was twisting it. Now, we're going to tie it down with 2 wraps behind. My thread is coming loose on my bobbin, and that happens sometimes. And you got to stick with it. You know, you want to keep the tension there. 2 wraps behind, and I always like to give it 1 in front. So I will, and nothing's going to stop me. Tension or no tension, we're going to create the tension or not. It's a little loose, so I'm going to be careful with my trim here, right? I don't want to cut the thread, 3/4 of the way through the fly. So you can take your time, trim out the bottom. Yeah, it's okay. Definitely much better shape than it was in, but my thread is still loose. So you can see, like, if it's loose on the bobbin, it's going to flail around and create problems. So what we got to do is we got to tighten up our bobbin a little bit. So let's just tighten up the bobbin, get the tension back on our thread. All right, we're going to lock in the yarn material nice and tight, couple wraps, and then 1 wrap around again in the front, and we're going to leave the thread and the bobbin in the cradle. Like, you're in the cradle, stay in the cradle, try and stay tight, okay? I'm going to grab the smaller material clip, and we're going to start to wrap the Madeira. Now, we're going to clip it on both strands that are hanging out of the tail. We're going to give it a twist, just to keep the 2 strands together, really, not twist it up too tight. Work your way up the body, sort of sticking with the segmentation created by the yarn. It helps as a guideline as you're working your way up the body. And this is going to be the other portion of this kind of budding wing that I use as an attractor here at the top, within the collar. So now we have the material. You see, it's getting loose again. It wants to get loose. So I'm going to keep as much tension as I can on that thread. Lock the Madeira in. 2 wraps behind, 1 in the front. Now I'm going to bring it back up to the top, so I don't really care too much about how much it's locked in on the bottom, because I'm going to pull it all up to the top. Going to turn this into a little wing bud. All right, so we're going to return tension to the thread. We have enough tension on our own right now with this tie. So we're going to get it nice and tight on the thread, bring it up, and really lock in this little Madeira wing bud. See, I gave them all the material a twist together, locked it in. Now I'm creating a little bit of a collar. I want to leave some space right behind the bead head for the whip finish. All right, we're going to trim off the Madeira. It's a little long for like a tiny wing bud. Trim it down. That looks like a nice little length there. Brush off the little extra pieces. Grab your whip finish tool. And we're going to do a 5-turn whip finish right behind that bead head as best we can get it tucked in there. 5 turns. Pop it off. And then just trim off the thread. Carefully. The tension wanted to go at the end there. But it looks pretty good. That profile is very nice. Got a few stray pieces here and there that I really can't quite get to. I tell you, if it wasn't for me filming it, I might not notice this little one on the top that seems to be bothering me, but I'm not going to let it bother me too much. We're going to finish this fly off with a little bit of head cement just to lock in those materials in the front and seal that thread. So we got the bodkin dipped in just a tiny, tiny drop, just enough to kind of coat the tip of the bodkin. I'm gonna wipe it around on the thread, just applying it to all the sides of the thread. Try to glue back that little strand that is just torturing me. I think I can trim it a little bit. There we go. Got it. That's good enough. It's a nice looking fly. Now I know the tie was a little crazy, but look at this. The end result, that sparkle, it's fantastic. It really came out nice. I mean, the profile looks good. Looks good. Nice color, good sparkle. The Utah Thriller. As you can see, I took the classic and stepped it up. I hope you guys enjoy the tie. Until the next one, stay fly.